Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm Steve Lance. President Biden announces he's canceling $10,000 in student debt for most borrowers. Yet it comes amid soaring inflation and criticism that it's a move towards socialism. NTD's Iris Tao has more.
It's about giving people a fair shot.
Fulfilling one of his campaign promises, President Biden announces,
"We will forgive $10,000 in outstanding federal student loans."
That's for Americans making less than $125,000 a year, and low-income students who qualify for Pell Grants
Will have their debt reduced $20,000.
About 43 million Americans have student debt, and the federal student aid website crashes as many look for information after the Wednesday announcement. The plan, meanwhile, is estimated to cost about $300 billion of taxpayer money, and Biden says it's good for the economy.
All this means people can finally crawl out from under that mountain of debt, to finally think about buying a home or starting a family or starting a business. And by the way, when this happens, the whole economy is better off.
And while progressives and liberals have urged Biden to go further and cancel an even larger share of student debt, moderates and Republicans have questioned the fairness of such widespread forgiveness and the administration's motivation in pushing for it.
In a Wednesday statement, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says, quote, Biden's student loan socialism is a slap in the face to every family who sacrificed to save for college, every graduate who paid their debt. And while Biden claims
there is plenty of deficit reduction to pay for the programs,
some economists disagree.
All the deficit reduction is going to be wiped out. At the same time, we're probably going to do more to increase inflation from debt cancellation than any inflation reduction from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Reporting Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
Congresswoman Virginia Foxx represents North Carolina's 5th District. She sits on the House Education Committee, and we're happy to have her here with us to discuss. Congresswoman Virginia Foxx, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be with you, Steve. Thanks for inviting me.
Congresswoman, President Biden is wiping away at least $10,000 in student debt for millions of Americans, which is expected to cost over $100 billion in taxes for the American taxpayer, many of whom did not go to university. What do you make of this move?
Well, it's very irresponsible on the part of the president. 87% of the American people, of taxpayers, do not have debt. The Democrats are trying to buy votes by doing this fall. They've put off and put off and put off having people continue to pay the debt they legally owe. And it is irresponsible on their part to be transferring wealth from people who never had a chance to go to college or who paid back their loans on their own to people who are in the top 60% of earners in the country. It is just wrong. And you said it's going to cost $100 billion. We've seen estimates that it could cost up to $600 billion. That would more than wipe out any kind of gain that might come from any bill that they claim that would cut inflation.
Congresswoman, I want to get your thoughts on this. I mean, does this possibly raise the question as to why American education is so expensive in the first place?
Oh, it not only raises the question, it puts it full center. What Republicans have been attempting to do, and we have a plan to do it, is to work on reducing the cost of post-secondary education. As long as the federal government will continue to subsidize and to pay off the debt of people who should be paying their own debt, then there's absolutely no incentive for colleges and universities to lower their cost. So this is bad policy in every possible way. It's a wealth transfer. It negates people who do the right things for the right reasons. It punishes people who paid off their debts. It tells the people who went to work and are doing a great job of paying their taxes that they're not as worthy as the people who took time off, went to college, perhaps didn't even do very well, but at least used the money of other taxpayers to afford a good lifestyle. It's just wrong every way that you turn.
Congresswoman, before I let you go, I just wanted to ask you, you touched upon this earlier. How much of this do you think is politically motivated heading into the midterms?
Well, President Biden ran with a campaign promise that he would cancel at least $10,000 worth of debt. So you don't have to look much farther than that it was a campaign promise. So that's a political issue. They're not doing well in the polls. We stand to gain the House, the Republicans do, this fall. And I think they're grasping at straws to find ways to appeal to their privileged class of people who basically vote for Democrats now, to get them to vote for them this fall. And I think delaying this until now, pretty close to the election, is certainly a political ploy.
North Carolina Congresswoman Virginia Foxx, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. God bless you.
First Lady Jill Biden tests positive for a second round of the CCP virus. The White House announced Wednesday, quote, after testing negative on Tuesday, just now the First Lady has tested positive for COVID-19. This represents a rebound positivity. She will remain in Delaware. The First Lady originally tested positive 8 days ago. A White House official said President Biden did test negative for COVID-19 earlier today. D.C.'s congressional delegate Eleanor Norton is asking for $50 million in emergency funding for illegal immigrants being bused to the nation's capital. Thousands of illegal immigrants processed at the southern border have been bused from Texas and Arizona to Washington, D.C. The delegate's request for aid came after the Pentagon denied to provide the National Guard to assist with managing the illegal aliens. Norton said in a statement that the funding is needed for humanitarian assistance. The Washington, D.C. public school system, meanwhile, put out a statement saying that children of illegal immigrant parents will be welcome within the system and that there is an enrollment process in place. One of the busiest primary nights for the country wrapped up last night, and some interesting results came in from Florida and New York. What do these results show about how the balance of power could look like in the Congress this fall? NTD's Melina Wisecup has the details.
Florida voters have a big year ahead. Tuesday, they voted on a number of primary races, including House, Senate, and Governor. Current Governor Ron DeSantis will face former Governor Charlie Crist this November.
On day one of my administration, I will sign an executive order protecting a woman's right to choose.
Crist, now a Democrat congressman, previously served Florida as a Republican until 2011. He then changed his party affiliation shortly after. Governor DeSantis, running again this year, was uncontested.
That because of your energy and enthusiasm, we were able to win school board victories all across the state of Florida.
As for the Senate race, Senator Marco Rubio is up for re-election this fall, and he's hopeful he'll pull some Democrat voters to his side of the aisle.
I wish this country had two normal political parties so we can debate, should the taxes be 18% or 19%? But that's not what we debate anymore. We debate crazy things, insanity.
Rubio told the crowd he was confident of a win in November when he'll face Democrat nominee Val Demings.
An America that will come together regardless of who we are.
To replace Demings in the House, a young progressive has taken the nomination. Maxwell Frost is a 25-year-old and has the backing from self-described socialist Bernie Sanders.
So the country is deeply polarized. There's no doubt about that. And political scientists have argued for this idea of pernicious polarization. And that is that we're at a state of polarization where it's no longer just two parties that are entrenched in their own beliefs, but it's two parties that look at the other as the enemy. It's an us versus them political environment now.
As for New York, voters had to decide between two veteran Congress members in District 12.
So you had to make a very tough choice, but at least I had to make a choice.
It's a win-win-win for us here.
Democrat Congressman Jerry Nadler won by a large margin against his colleague, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney.
I'm thrilled that we were able to win while remaining committed to our principles of kindness and progressivism.
And in New York's 19th district, a big win for Democrats. Pat Ryan is projected to win a special election. Ryan, who's campaigned on reversing abortion restrictions, has defeated Republican Mark Molinaro. And the Democrat congressional campaign chair is calling Ryan's win an earthquake. With the slim margin in Congress, Republicans are historically favored to win. But with Ryan's win last night in New York's Bellwether County, Democrats are taking this as a hint that voters will have their backs this fall. As for how both parties will fare approaching midterms, some political analysts say neither side has an easy campaign to run, owing to the deep polarization.
Both parties nationally are in serious trouble, but the Democratic Party has different kinds of problems. Why? Because that left and right can't seem to find any place to go together. There is no center anymore. It's quickly being dissipated.
Only a handful of states have primaries to run ahead of the midterms, which are just 11 weeks away. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Wisecup, NTD News.
All members are required to report their financial disclosures. In 2021's reports were due 2 weeks ago, but 10 members are missing, including Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Her office says she'll disclose the statement soon. While she's pushing the deadline for filing her own financial disclosures, AOC has been a stark critic of other members' finances, and she has repeatedly pushed to ban members from owning stocks. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted today that she has been swatted. Swatted is when making a false report in an effort to get police to raid a person's home. According to police, they responded to a 911 call claiming that someone was shot at the Congresswoman's Georgia home. A second call from the suspect using a computer-generated voice said that they were upset about Greene's position on transgender issues. Last week, Greene introduced a bill to outlaw procedures related to gender transition for minors.
Which is really genital mutilation. It's puberty blockers that cause chemical castration, teenage girls actually having their breasts chopped off, teenage boys being castrated. This needs to be illegal, and I'm introducing a bill called Protect Children's Innocence Act.
In a tweet today, Greene reaffirmed her commitment to stopping what she calls child abuse. Congressman Scott Perry is suing to block the Justice Department from reviewing his cell phone contents, this after the FBI seized it on August 9th. The agency is in the process of getting a warrant to look at the phone's contents, while Perry claims his phone contains privileged material. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.